where females are about 187,000 kilocalories per day. That's a lot of food. Okay, so let's say that it takes 5 otters for a killer whale or orca to be able to meet their caloric requirements. So if we're talking about a male, okay, who needs 308,000 kilocalories per day, and so to reach that requirement, they're eating 5 otters every day to reach that requirement, okay, which we could then hopefully realize that each otter is offering about 61,600 kilocalories, units are important, per otter. Okay, so each otter offers almost 62,000 kilocalories. Okay, so let's say we've got a population of 4 male orcas. Okay, so I've got 4 male orcas in my population here. How many sea otters are lost to the community over a 6-year period of time? Okay, so let's ask that one more time. Okay, I'll put that part in blue. Okay, I've got a population of 4 male orcas. Okay, and I want to know how many sea otters are lost from the population over 6 years. Okay, how many sea otters will be lost? So remember, your males are eating 5 otters every day. This is like your dimensional analysis that you would do in chemistry and physics and stuff. Okay, so you've lost 5 otters every day. Okay, there are 365 days, right, in 1 year. We're going to try to shorten this a little. Okay, so, and I've got, what I'm looking at here is 6 years. That was my question, right? So when I do this here, I've got, when I do the math here, and I multiply all of this out, I have, I don't have my calculator with me. I have 10,950 otters, okay, per orca. This was only one orca eating its 5 otters a day. So one orca over 6 years is eating 10,950 otters. But remember, I have a population of 4 of them. Okay, so I've got to take my 10,950 otters, okay, and I need to multiply that by 4, okay, which is going to give me a total of 43,800 otters are lost from the population over a course of 6 years, just because the orcas are shifting their food source. Okay, so this is going to cause, like you saw in that graph just a minute ago, a significant decline in the kelp density because the sea urchin population is just getting too large. Okay, so again, your keystone species, not exactly your most abundant, but really usually as a general rule, your most influential. Some other factors that can impact your community, again, things we've already talked about on that very first slide. Competition. Okay, remember, competition is a plus-minus situation. Somebody's going to win, benefit to them. Somebody's going to lose. Okay, predation, same thing, also a plus-minus. Predator is going to benefit from that. Obviously, the prey is not going to benefit from that situation. Okay, your types of symbiosis. Remember your commensalism, which is that +0. There are some examples of commensalism and epiphyte, where they're sometimes called air plants. Okay, those plants that grow on top of trees and stuff, they're not taking any nutrients or anything from the tree. Okay, so the tree doesn't really care that they're there. Remember, mutualism is your ++. Again, in the first picture we saw the butterfly and the bee and the flower. Another example could be the mycorrhizae. You've seen this your freshman year also. You've seen this word. Okay, remember that was the fungus and plant. The fungus basically wraps around the plant roots and helps it to absorb more water and more minerals and stuff from the soil, and the plant provides food to the fungus. Remember, fungus is a heterotroph. Okay, and then remember your parasitism, plus minus. We saw a leech on the very first slide in the beginning. You could have a tick as your parasite. A host could be basically any kind of animal. Certain kinds of worms can be parasites, like a tapeworm would be an example. Disease as well can impact a community. Disease is obviously a negative situation. There's no really winner here in a disease situation, but it can definitely have an impact on a community. Remember, all of these things are interspecific interactions. These are things that are actually happening between the organisms that are in the community. Disease, not necessarily. Remember, because especially if it's a viral disease, remember, virus is not considered living. Some of the ways that organisms can help defend themselves within the community are Mullerian mimicry. In Mullerian mimicry, you've got two or more organisms that are both bad in some way. So they are, they may both be poisonous. They may both have some kind of stinging defense or something, but they are both bad in some kind of way. And so when these two organisms have very similar coloring, similar coloring and markings, and so they are mimicking one another, and so it makes other organisms, potential predators, just stay away from all of them. Because the thought process then is that, all of these organisms are bad. If they're used to seeing this one, and then they come across this one, then they'll think that they won't have to taste it to see that it's bad. They will realize, they will assume it's bad before they ever taste it. The example here is the cuckoo bee and the yellow jacket. Another kind of mimicry is called Batesian mimicry. And with Batesian mimicry, you have a harmless species. So one that may be edible, one that is not a problem. A harmless species then will mimic a poisonous one or a harmful species. Some kind of, again, it may be an edible, something along those lines. But your harmless species will mimic the harmless species will mimic the harmful species. Examples here are these butterflies. Okay, you've got the viceroy butterfly versus the monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies are actually poisonous. Okay, and so if you were a predator of them, so the viceroy butterfly looks similar to the monarch butterfly. You've got an example in your book of, it's kind of a neat picture, if you can look it up. Okay, it's called a hawk moth. Okay, the larva of a hawk moth looks like a green parrot snake. And so it will kind of flare out its wings to mimic this snake even more. But it has this moth larva has the same markings as the snake. And so it makes organisms hopefully not eat the moth larva. Two other types of defenses that you could see throughout the community could be cryptic coloring, which is basically just camouflage. I think on these two pictures you can see it. There's the sea organism there. There's your bird sitting on the rocks there. So that allows them to hide from predators, as well as aposematic coloring. Aposematic coloring is basically a warning coloring. It's when you see those really brightly colored organisms, and so they are shouting out a warning to potential predators that they are poisonous, and so that they shouldn't be eaten. So now let's look at what the ecological niche is of an organism in the community. And so remember, your ecological niche is going to be your role or function in the environment. So the example we have over here is an oak tree. So if you think about some of the roles or the jobs that the oak tree has in a forest, so it's going to provide oxygen. It's going to provide oxygen to plants, to animals. It provides a home for organisms, home for some birds, home for squirrels, So in that sense, it provides a nesting area or nesting ground. Okay, so the squirrels, can set up their home in the tree. Blue jays can set up their nest in the tree. Okay, and it removes water from the soil, which is actually important. Okay, you don't want the soil to be too waterlogged, and then other organisms can't grow there. So the oak tree here in this forest has a variety of niches. Okay, the niche is going to be basically it's the total of an organism's both biotic and abiotic resources, the use of them. Okay, so again, it's your total of the organism's use of abiotic and biotic resources in the community. Okay. In its environment. And there's two different types of niches that an organism can have. So let's go to the picture. I think that will help. So an organism can have either what's called a fundamental, has a fundamental niche, as well as what's called the realized niche. Okay, so the fundamental niche, this is the entire niche it can occupy. So for example, here, as you're looking at these barnacles, their fundamental niche is this entire area, okay, that they can occupy. That's the brown ones. The gray ones, this whole area is their fundamental niche. So that's the area it can potentially occupy. It doesn't mean it's there, but it means if it could be there, then it could survive. The realized niche is the area that it actually occupies. And if you look here, you can hopefully tell some information from this diagram, basically that these gray ones are a little bit better competitors than the brown ones, because you'll notice the brown ones have a very large fundamental niche, that entire area, all that area of where high tide and low tide is, but they're only living in that very small area on the top here. Comparatively speaking, their realized niche is very small, and the gray ones, their realized niche is the same as their fundamental niche, which means they are out competing those brown ones for the resources. So there are a few different kinds of competition. Okay? The first one being interference. Okay? Interference, this is going to be your direct fighting. Okay? This is two male elk are fighting over a female elk. Okay? There is direct fighting here over resources. Okay? There is direct competition, physical interaction between the two organisms. The exploitative competition, this is an indirect competition. Okay, so this is not a head-to-head competition. Okay, this is indirectly competing by consuming the common resources. Can't spell. I can't spell at all. So one organism basically is better at consuming the common shared limited resource. It obviously has to be a limited resource. If it's unlimited, then competition wouldn't be happening. Everybody could have whatever they needed. So with this, like I said, example could be space. You could have one organism that moves into an area where another one was trying to live. And so when the second one comes in, there's no space available to them. So it's an indirect form of competition, okay, by consuming this resource basically before the other one can get there. Another kind of competition is apparent competition. Okay, and so this is an indirect kind of competition. And it actually involves two prey. So I've got indirect competition happening here between two species that are both preyed upon by the same predator. Okay, so two species that are preyed upon by the same predator. So let's talk about how this could happen. Okay, so let's say, for example, species A and species B are prey of C. Okay, so let me see if I can clear some more space on here.